Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my, pretty much every show that I do, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, out here. And Tracy St. Clair, good morning over on YouTube. Dylan Turner, good morning. Let's go. Let's get some knowledge. Amen to that. Yeah, guys, we got a little bit to talk about here. We got a lot of freight moving this week, fortunately. And we're in the process of, I had Kevin Hill on the show yesterday, and we're talking about, freight brokers leaving the industry and a lot of the data that's out there right now. And before we get into any of the articles, I want to talk a little bit about my experience so far over the last 60 days in the industry. But before I touch on that, I know, right? Couple of quick announcements. Brand new episode with Kenneth Carter III, my man KC3, is available right now, you guys, on iTunes and Spotify. He was one of the first people that I kind of got in contact with when I started creating content a long time ago. And he's, developed into a friend of mine. And, he's got a really great story about overcoming in his past and what he's done to build his company up. So definitely check that one out. It is available. And sorry guys, 1 second. And yeah, just check it out. He's got a good story. I really enjoy it. Corey Buchan, good morning to you. And yeah, so there's that. And then also, you guys, diesel is going down again, which is always a really good sign out there in the market. It's down to $3.65 a gallon nationwide, you guys. I get all of that information from the EIA, EIA.gov. We are at $3.65 a gallon and trending down, and nothing screams an election year more than falling gas prices, especially over these last 4 years. So anyways, I want to talk about the last 2 months in the industry. That would be May, April. We'll go the last 90 days, because the last 90 days is when my entire, I don't want to say my entire perspective changed, but I switched things up because I was really minimal cold call, very email heavy in my business development. And, I earlier this year, I went out and visited all of my customers on site, and, all the shippers that we're working with. I met them in person. I went to their facilities. I checked everything out. And, we also hired our first sales rep. And, my business partner and I were just like, hey, we gotta have somebody dial in the phone, because as we get busier, I got to make sure that business development never stops, right? I was talking about that yesterday on the show with Kevin Hill. And, and we have found, and this is just 90 days worth of feedback here, that we've onboarded, I think we've onboarded and moved freight with 4 brand new customers, all based off of cold calling in the last 90 days. Now, some of you might be like, oh, that's not a lot, but it kind of is, right? It's a lot of new business for us that we've been able to do. And it's all stemmed from cold calling. It's all stemmed from site visits. And it's a process, right? Because, we're getting in there, and, at the end of the day, everybody's good right now, right? We've talked about this a lot, and everybody doesn't need you right now, but that doesn't mean that people aren't open to setting up new providers. That doesn't mean that there's aren't going to be people out there that are looking for it. It just takes a lot more work than I think a lot of people want to put out there, especially all those tech companies that are trying to sell you on AI and, automating your sales process and everything. And, there's certain components of it that went from a email response and, a quoting and stuff like that. There are some, tools that are out there for that. But I truly think, that there's never going to be anything more effective than getting out and meeting people in person and making calls. And, yeah, it's going to be a lot of rejection. But that's part of it, right? And it's not you individually. It's not you, the person. It's, what you're up against, and what a lot of transportation providers are up against is unfortunately and fortunately, unfortunately, there's a lot of shitty providers out there, you guys. There's a lot of people out there in business across every industry who just don't care, right? Like they just don't give a shit. They put in minimal effort and everything else. And there is a very bad stigma out there, but it's not really a stigma because it's the truth, right? Like there's a lot of subpar providers that are out there. And but that's also, fortunately for everybody, that's also a major opportunity for a lot of you to go out there and develop business. All right. Because what I'm calling and what I'm saying, it's nothing special, right? Like none of us are reinventing the wheel with any of our sales pitches and any of our approaches. Because at the end of the day, people are going to work with you because they like you, but they're never going to know about your services if you're just going to sit there and take the path of least resistance. And that's something that I did. And we developed a little bit of business, but we've had more success in the last 90 days of going back to the basics, you guys, the very basics, the fundamentals of cold calling and doing site visits than we had for the previous 14 months. Okay. So again, I'm going to come out here and talk to you guys about the realities of what I'm actually doing in my business. And I'm always going to put those best practices out there. And I think that there is no better practice than to get up and make calls. All right. Because we all suck. We all sound like shit on the phone. It's all awkward right away. No matter what anybody wants to say, it's all awkward for everybody, or at least it is for me. All right. I'll be the one to admit it. It's awkward for me the first couple of times we make cold calls and everything else, because yeah, the rejection sucks. The rejection hurts. It's just part of it. But I think that there's not a more effective way to do it. And again, if I compare the last 18 months, because that's where we're at, the last 18 months, we've onboarded and moved freight with more new clients in the last 90 days than we did the previous 14 months, due to us completely switching up our thing, hiring somebody who's going out there and developing business for us for when we are moving freight and everything else. We know that the sales never stop. And, again, you got to build out your team around that, you guys. You got to build out your team. You got to find a way to get out in front of more people, and really amplify your outreach, because sitting back and thinking about doing stuff. And I think that this is going to kill more dreams. And I've seen posts, about this. So, I'm kind of pulling it from them, but theory, you got to stop theorizing after a while. You got to just jump in the trenches. You got to get into the arena. You got to just go for it. Because again, you guys, it's a complete stranger who you're never going to see in real life that's hanging up the phone on you or telling you no, but they also might be telling you yes at the same time. They might also be giving you a little bit of an in to continue a conversation at a future date, because eventually the market will flip, you guys. And eventually there is going to be a lot of opportunity out there, but it's not going to be there for you if you're just going to wait for that to happen, right? Like we were talking about, and like one of the viewers on the show had mentioned yesterday, how do I replace a tier one account of everything that happened? Like there's a lot of shit that can happen out there, you guys. And one way to help minimize a lot of that is never stop prospecting, never stop selling out there. Sunny Sharma, good morning to you over on LinkedIn. I don't know what's going on LinkedIn, you guys. Just if you guys could all continue to help spread the message. I do go live every single day. I get messages a lot saying that people can't find me on LinkedIn anymore. I don't know what it is about LinkedIn, but it's very challenging to build consistency on the live streams on there. That's why I go live on Twitter. That's why I go live on YouTube. And that's why I make sure to upload the audio only version onto iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show, because for some reason, LinkedIn does not notify people that I'm going live. Social media platforms, you guys, change the algorithms all the time. They make switches to their platforms, and it's my job as a media source to find the other ways to continue to go. But rest assured, you guys, I will go live every single weekday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Yes, there's going to be a couple of days that I'm going to miss because I'm growing a business or if I'm at a conference and stuff like that. But you guys, that's where I'm always going to be. You're always going to find my content coming up on iTunes and Spotify as well for the audio only replay. And then also, you guys, newsletter. We release a weekly newsletter every Wednesday. All right. So that's coming out. We switched it from Friday to Wednesday. So every single Wednesday, we drop a newsletter. I don't auto sign anybody up for this stuff, but we will continue to do that. We're going to break down some articles here. First article we're going to break down. This is the ILA halts talks over new contract until Maersk and APM clarify port IT projects. This is from JOC.com. The International Longshoremen Association said Monday it has canceled talks with management over a new 6-year contract covering East Coast and Gulf Coast ports due to what it describes as violations of its existing deal amid automation projects by Maersk and its APM terminals subsidiaries at the Port of Mobile. ILA said in a statement that negotiation with the United States Maritime Alliance, scheduled to begin Tuesday, have been canceled after discovering that APM terminals and Maersk Line are utilizing an auto gate system which processes trucks without ILA labor. This system, initially identified at the Port of Mobile, is reportedly being used in other ports as well. This is a clear violation of our agreement. Maersk said the tech projects do not violate the master contract, and that if it wants to re-engage on talks, with the union representing 45,000 dock workers out there. And then it did lead to a strike threat and everything. And the union has broadly resisted efforts to bring automation to the marine terminals through its master contract. The current master contract blocks the development of fully automated terminals and equipment. However, there's more leeway in the adoption of semi-automated equipment out there. Another labor source at the Port of Mobile told the JOC that the local union only recently became aware of the technology project, saying APM did not go through the procedure outlined in the master contract out there. So this is, I think, pay attention to this one, you guys, because obviously it is the main arteries of the United States supply chain that goes through the ports. And I personally just finished up a 17 load project out of the Port of Savannah. And I got more loads coming through the Port of Savannah coming up here for a newer customer of ours. And this is something that I am definitely going to be keeping an eye on because, ports are already backed up and everything else. And, obviously the longshoremen are going to want to refuse any form of automation because that would make them have to work faster and that would make all of that stuff. And, and again, I'm very much, I've never hid my utter disdain for labor unions. I do not stand for them at all. I understand why people see value in them. I'm not saying that, but I just do not see the need for them in today's day and age. And I truly feel like they do more harm than good out there. I really do. I understand the collection and getting them out there, but who benefits in those situations? And my stance isn't going to be changed by a couple of shit talking messages that always come in every time I stand up or stand out against the unions, because I'm not a fan of them at all. I do not think that they do the everyday worker as much good as a lot of people think. Yes, I know that there's benefits there. Okay. But I'm just not a fan of labor unions. I'm not at all. And I'm not going to be changed on that at all. I think it's more political than anything. And the union reps benefit more than anything in these instances. And the frontline worker is the one who is hung out to dry in most people in those situations are, yeah. So I won't go into it too far on that, but I think everybody needs to pay attention to the potential labor strikes that are going out there on the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. Flo, good morning to you. Next article we are going to break down, a couple of them are all from the JOC this morning. Excuse me. This one is from Bill Cassidy, wrote this one, and this is U.S. trucking hiring falters in May on low freight demand. The U.S. economy gained more jobs than expected in May, but not in trucking. Instead, continued weak freight demand blunted hiring in the for hire trucking industry. The trucking industry added approximately 9,400 jobs. And sorry, I just lost my. Sorry, guys, we got freight moving right now. Give me just 1 second here. The trucking industry added approximately 9,400 jobs out there. However, seasonal adjustments showed the actual unadjusted gain was 5,500 jobs short of expectations in May. The U.S. economy added 272,000 jobs. That was more than the 180,000 that economists expected. Trucking companies added 15,400 real unadjusted jobs in May of 2023 and 24,000 in May of 2021. So the expectation of a 14,800 gain in trucking jobs before adjustment this year wasn't exceptional. There is more evidence that freight conditions remain weak, said Jason Miller. Even so, the increase in an adjusting trucking payrolls out there went up, excuse me, and then the monthly rate of change in the unadjusted trucking employment numbers rose 0.03 to 0.6 in May. And then it goes on to say about the freight shortfall. Miller tied the lower than expected increase in trucking employment to weakness in industrial sectors such as fracking, food manufacturing, chemical production, and paper and primary metals manufacturing, all strong sources of truck freight. That is a fact that so many freight centric manufacturing sectors have lower output today than back in 21 and 22. This further explains why we haven't seen the fortunes in the trucking industry shift. The seasonally adjusted job loss doesn't show capacity is leaving the trucking industry. Slower than expected payroll expansion likely means that is what we are observing. And again, I think that that article was from the JOC. There's there's a lot of different data sources that are out there right now. We were talking about that on yesterday's show as well. And I think that, this is something that I think a lot of people can apply to their business. There's a lot of stuff out there. And I'm not saying that it's not something to watch, but a lot of these numbers that we talk about overall freight volumes and hiring and everything else is not applicable to a lot of businesses out there. All right. It's not. And I've been saying this a lot, and I feel like I'm kind of banging a used drum at this point, but I think that this is very relevant out there because a lot of the freight, a lot of the situations that we all find ourselves in, at least me, the situation that I'm in right now, I don't give a shit about any of this stuff because like we were talking about earlier, I'm going to continue to show up and make my sales calls and do my outreaches and everything else because I'm planting a bunch of seeds for the future, ladies and gentlemen. I'm planting a bunch of stuff out there. So I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what anybody says about this stuff. I got to continue to show up because I got a company to build. I got a company to run. I got to continue to do this because I got to produce revenue. And I'm not going to take some weak economic data as a time to step back because that's what a lot of people are doing. That's what a lot of people do in a time of turmoil and a time of uncertainty. They take the foot off the gas and they go into defense. I'm just throwing everything in the fucking kitchen sink to make this work. Let me see here. Next article is from Freight Waves, and then summer shipping demand lifts truckload market. Spot rates sustainably up 4% over 2023. The outbound tender volume surged over 7.1% from May to June, marking one of the strongest demand surges to start the summer. The spike in tender volume appears to have helped sustain spot rates, excluding fuel, at relatively elevated levels beyond the Memorial holiday. I think it's important to note that when was Memorial? Let me see here. Give me just one moment. I got to pull up the old calendar here. Yeah, the Monday, May 27th was Memorial Day. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this. So, I don't know how people release their data, but those outbound tender volumes, it measures the total number of electronic requests from shippers to carrier. It bases heavily toward the contract freight market, which consists of a long-term rate agreements out there. The domestic truckload market has been in an extreme state of oversupply since 2022, when the impacts of COVID on supply chains began to wane. Transportation service providers volume, I'm just going to jump around here. Volumes tend to jump this time of year, increasing between 0.3 and 6.8% over the last 4 years, but they jumped 8.8% in 2019, a historically down market. So while the tender volume jump was the largest in several years, it has not pushed rates higher proportionally. It has more than a sustained level. The more positive news is probably the spot rate figure, which has been averaging about 4 to 7% higher year over year since early May. Until that point, rates have been largely lower than they were in 2023. International Road Check and Memorial Day appeared to help push rates higher, and that has sustained through the first week of June. So keep that in mind, you guys. There was major events that caused this to do, and this is one of those data points that you want to pay attention to. So, like I had mentioned earlier this year, is that how the market recovery really happens in a market shift it's going to be that ratchet up approach. All right, so pay attention to this. If we talk about this in a month from now, right? If rates have remained elevated, even if it's 3 cents a mile or whatever, this is all hypothetical. That's what I mean by the ratchet up effect, right? There will be holidays and there will be events like International Road Check that cause rates to go up. So if it spiked 10 cents, say it was at $2 a mile, and then it spiked to 210 for road check, and then the holiday weekend, and then maybe it drops back down to like 204 instead of going back down to 2. That is the ratchet up effect. So start paying attention to that, you guys, as data points go on out there. That is the real sign of a market shift, all right, going on. It's paying attention to those little incremental bumps, because there's not going to be a cataclysmic rise and a cataclysmic fall like there was during 2021 and 2022. It will be a ratchet up approach, and then eventually tender rejections are going to go out there because they can make more money on the spot market than they can in the contracted market. And then baby steps. A solid takeaway is the market has shifted directionally, meaning things are not getting worse from a transportation provider perspective. There's still a long way to go. Sign of a more balanced environment will manifest in the form of tender rejection rates, the percentage where they turn down between 5 and 7% during non-holiday periods. This tends to be the place where carriers have enough leverage to price their services above cost. Looking at rejection rates over the past 6 years, that appears to be a rare occurrence. Rejections are still below 5%, even with the recent demand bump, but they are trending higher considering this summer shipping pattern of increase. So this is like, if you guys go to this article and read it, right here is what I'm talking about. All right. So this is very, very good information inside of this article talking about the more balanced approach and that where rejection rates are. Okay. Again, I will always give credit where credit is due. And this is a very, very solid piece of advice for anybody out there who's trying to track, are things shifting? Where are rates trending? I would say this chart right here in this article is very telling. All right. So again, pay attention to that stuff. Comparing 2024 rejection rate patterns to 2019, the market looks eerily similar over the past few weeks, indicating that we have finally entered the tailing edge of a capacity exodus. So again, you guys, I don't always agree with everything the Freight Wave says. All right. I think it's very evident out there, but I think that this is a very solid article that they wrote out here. All right. And it aligns with what I'm talking about when I say how the market is going to recover and how I've mentioned this in past shows. Okay. So this is a good article. There's good information that is going on out there, you guys, because this is normal. All right. This is a normal market. Anybody who's been in this industry I'll even call it late 2020, when all of the shit had started, this is how a normal freight market operates. Okay. So what we are in right now is the very, very way that it is going to be outside of another black swan event. Because when it boils down to it, you guys, that's what the pandemic was. It was a black swan event. So what you're experiencing right now is normal. Here's what's not normal, all right, from a business development standpoint. And this will come because, like I've said, I think that at this point, there will be way more brokers exiting the market. And that's not, I say brokers, I'm not talking about the phantom MCs that are out there. I'm talking about actual freight brokers who are actually moving freight. There will be more brokers that go out of business here over the next 24 months than there will trucking companies. Okay. It's a harsh reality of what's going on in the market. I think that there will be, if you look at that, and this is why I love having Kevin Hill on the show, because he compiles all of this data. If I have him back on in 12 months And if we look at freight brokerage authorities that are gone compared to trucking company authorities that are gone, there will be exponentially more freight brokers out of business in the next 12 to 18 months than there will be trucking companies. And again, I think, and I've already stated the why behind it. They don't have to, all right? But it is going to be very challenging for people who have never had who have had the upper hand, excuse me. All these freight brokers that have had the upper hand for the last 3 to 4 years when it's been easy to cover freight and you've been talking shit to carriers about all of this stuff, about how you have to take yada, yada, yada. Those will be the first ones to go. All right. But they don't have to. All right. Once they realize that, hey, I need carriers and I need them, especially with this market that we're going to go into, because it's going to be brutal for people if you've never worked in an environment like this, and when I say, like, I don't want to make it sound challenging, because, like, if you treat drivers with respect and, you take care of them, ironically, they take care of you. It's a fucking odd concept. All right. Very odd concept. But if you apply that and you're applying that now, you will be fine. But I know how freight brokers are because I am a freight broker. And I don't believe everything I see on social media, but I see a lot of shit on social media, and none of the behaviors have changed out there. All right. That's why I am always all in on me fucking taking over this market. All right. In the long term, because I actually apply what I talk about on this show. All right. I actually do it. I do it every single day. So, yeah, I think strap in, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna get exciting here. And if you've been out there prospecting at the level that I know my company has, there's going to be a nice windfall of opportunities coming your way at some point this year. But that will be it for today. I got a guest coming on tomorrow. You guys are familiar with him. And yeah, we're just going to bring you guys up to speed on the topic that he is probably more passionate about than any other human being in this country. But that will be it for today, you guys. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. Oh yeah, one more thing. Hit up my friends at Green Screens. If you guys want to have the best pricing, I literally use them every single day. And it's scary how accurate their rates are right now, especially in this this little shift that we're kind of seeing out there in some freight markets, not everywhere. But the freight markets that I'm moving out of, Green Screens is fucking like dialed on their prices. Okay. So hit them up, you guys. Newsletter drops tomorrow. As always, if you guys got value, subscribe to the show. Rank the show on iTunes and Spotify. If you guys listen over there, do your boy a solid. Go over there and rank them on there. That helps spread the awareness. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.